Welcome to the Pooch Parenting Podcast, a podcast for parents with dogs. I'm Michelle Stern, a certified professional dog trainer, mom, and former teacher. Living with kids and dogs at the same time can feel like a circus. I know because I lived it too. Join us as we interview a variety of experts and parents to discuss topics that will make parenting with dogs easier, safer, and less chaotic. Also, you can love living with your dog again. I'll always keep it real, which might even mean that you hear the messiness of life in the background on occasion, but at least you know you're not alone. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss one of the most common pieces of advice that people give dog parents who are expecting or adopting a baby. That advice is actually a myth, in my opinion. Are you curious what it is? Okay, I'll tell you. The advice is that you should bring home a baby blanket from the hospital for your dog to sniff, because that should theoretically help your dog to accept the baby, to like the baby, to not be surprised by the baby. And here is why I think that is a bunch of garbage. Okay, so calling this myth garbage might be a bit extreme, but first I want to dive into why people think this is a good idea in the first place, because I think then it will help you to see that it is misguided. So first of all, I think people make the assumption that being exposed to something means that that item will be less scary or intimidating later. So for example, we do encourage families to start to play baby sounds and use baby equipment before the baby comes home from the hospital. And that's different from this concept of bringing home the baby blanket for the dog to sniff. Because when we are introducing the dog slowly to sounds or equipment before the baby comes home, we're very intentional about the training process that goes along with those introductions. So we're very careful to pair those things with positive experiences for our dog, and that can make those items less scary later. But the problem is that if someone is bringing home an item that smells like the baby, theoretically, from the hospital, that person is often rushed because they need to go home, maybe potty the dog, take them out, give them dinner, and then return back to the hospital. So that person is not likely going to spend the time that it's going to take to do proper training sessions with the dog, to pair that scent on that blanket with treats or things that the dog likes. Now, the other thing to consider is that that blanket probably also smells like lots of other things from the hospital, such as the nursing staff who touch the baby and hospital disinfectant and other smells from hospitals, which are pretty icky. So what we need to really consider here is if the person who is bringing the item home for the dog to sniff really going to have the bandwidth to do the training that it takes. And unfortunately, in my many years of focusing on dogs and kids for my business, I don't see that being the case. The norm is more that somebody rushes home, they leave the blanket thinking the dog will just sniff it when the dog feels like it, and they leave and they go back to the hospital. But this can actually be dangerous, and that is because your dog may sleep on the blanket. Your dog may use the blanket as a toy. Your dog may tear the blanket to shreds. And the very last thing you want to do when you're bringing home an infant is pair a dog toy with the infant. I don't want the dog ever thinking they can lay on the baby or play with the blanket that the baby is wrapped in. That can actually be really dangerous. Now, if you insist on bringing home a baby item from the hospital, go for it. That's totally fine. But I would put it up on top of a bookshelf or somewhere where the dog can't reach it so that that smell begins to permeate the house and the dog is slowly exposed to it. Now, that is just exposure. That is not training, and that isn't going to necessarily make the dog feel any differently about the baby. You're also introducing the dog to hospital smells in this case. And last time I checked, you're not bringing a hospital home to live with you for the next 18 to 20 years. You're bringing home an infant. So in my opinion, the stakes are incredibly high. I would not mess around with this concept, and I would probably skip it altogether. And finally, one last thing to think about with this concept is that by bringing home something and being really intentional about showing the dog the blanket, you're bringing a lot of extra excitement to this item and to the baby, when in reality, they're going to have a lifetime to build a strong relationship. So I would rather you not hype up anything related to the baby, and that you'd rather kind of downplay it, because they have time to get to know each other. And I don't really see any point in rushing the process and possibly making mistakes in the meantime. One last thought that I'd like to leave you with is, the next time you meet your friend's new partner that they're dating, I'm pretty sure you didn't ask to smell that person's socks before you met them, right? And there's a reason for that. Just smelling something isn't going to make you like a person better. So when you hear this advice being given, feel free to send this podcast episode to folks so that they can understand that this is a wives' tale that could actually end up being dangerous. I hope you found this helpful, and if there are any other pieces of dog advice that you're curious about, whether or not they're good advice or not, feel free to send me a question. All you need to do is visit the website speakpipe.com/poochparenting, and you can record your message like a voicemail, and I will play it on a future podcast episode and give you the best answer that I can. Hope this was helpful. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Pooch Parenting Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and leave a review. But even better yet, tell a friend. Are you in some moms groups, perhaps? Or maybe you're friendly with your pediatrician. Please let them know that resources like this exist, because the information that I share with my people goes beyond what most baby books offer, and a lot of parents need support. You'd be doing them a favor. Thanks again. Have a great day.